My name is Dimitri Broxton. I'm the Senior Director of Education at MOAD, and this is In the Artist Studio. We have been doing this program for over a year now, and I'm not quite sure which episode we are, and we're somewhere close to 50 artists that we've spoken to since the
Wow.
quarantine began. Um, and so just again, twice a month. We were doing it every week, but just in case you haven't joined us in a while, twice a month, join my colleague Elena Gross or myself as we visit some of our favorite artists in their studios to see what they're currently working on. This is a rare opportunity to hear from artists directly from their studios. We follow all of our talks with an audience Q&A, so if you are joining us on Zoom, please click on the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen and enter your questions. We promise we'll get to them in the last 15 minutes of the conversation. Please also visit our website, sign up for MOAD's newsletter to see which artists we have coming up. You can also go back and watch all of our previous talks on Museum of the African Diaspora's YouTube channel. This series was made possible by generous donations by the Westridge Foundation, all of our MOAD members, and all of you who join us each week. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. I'm going to read a few statements. As always, at MOAD, we like to center and ground ourselves in the work. So, MOAD stands in solidarity with Black Lives Matter. We honor and mourn the senseless murders of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Tony McDade, and Breonna Taylor, whose death still sits heavily on our hearts. We mourn so many others who have lost their lives at the hands of police brutality and racial injustice, including those whose names we do not know. Also, we want to acknowledge the land that we are all co-located on. So many of us are settlers, immigrants, or descendants of those who were forcefully brought to this continent. Our institutions were founded upon exclusions and erasures of the indigenous peoples whose lands we are located. It's with deep respect that MOAD acknowledges that even in the virtual space, our people, our work, and our network servers are all on native lands. And we thank the indigenous peoples of the Bay Area who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. I'm also going to add in New York also for where Elan is at.
Thank you.
My wonderful guest today that I'm so excited to be speaking to is Elan Cadiz. She is an interdisciplinary North American visual artist that deconstructs and balances her intersectionality through her projects. Her art and practice are grounded in the documentation of her personal narrative through the use of historical imagery and the domestic. Elan graduated from City College of New York with a BA in studio art and received an MFA degree from the School of Visual Arts, where she was awarded the SVA Merit Scholarship, Paul Rhodes Memorial Award, and the Martha Trevor Award. Cadiz was commissioned by the Studio Museum in Harlem, El Museo del Barrio, Art in Flux Harlem, Mount Vernon Hotel Museum, and more. She was one of the first Sustainable Arts Foundation AIRspace parent artist residents at Abrons Art Center, and her An American Family album series was featured in Vogue. Woohoo! Her artwork can also be found in New American Paintings magazine, issue number 146. Elan, I am so happy to be in conversation with you
Oh
today.
my gosh, I'm so excited to talk to you. It's like talking to a celebrity. I've been watching your
Oh my God.
I've been watching your videos, and I'm so excited to be a part of this. It's so beautiful. The YouTube channel is so beautiful, and you have such wonderful content. I was almost overwhelmed.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. We're so happy to hear that. Yeah, I have been following your work. Oh, I want to say time is I don't even know what time is, but
I know.
our wonder our wonder yeah, I'm like, has it been 2 years,
Oh
3 years,
my
four?
God,
I have no
I don't
idea.
know. No idea.
But one of our guests who is with us actually and a dear friend of Moad, Soraya Rios, kind
Yes.
of she is a conduit for artists. Yes, yes. And when I saw that, I was like, who is this artist? I must know them now. And
Well, I must be totally and completely transparent. I did not know Soraya. I knew I followed her because of her posts were so amazing. And
Amazing, right?
it was over time that I said, wait a second. I look at who I know. But
Yes, yes.
it's funny how some people's energy just attracts and pulls you in such a positive way. And she saw the project and had mentioned it. And by random, and I don't do that to everyone, but I asked her, do you want to be a part of it? And she was kind enough
Mm.
to say yes. It was like, hey.
Yes, yeah, she is just a connector, a very quiet but intentional connector.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was just like, oh, I gotta look more because Serena knows her stuff. So yeah, how have things been for you over this last year of being inside
Well,
and and having Black Lives Matter
oh,
come to the center?
everything. Well, we're both museum educators and we deal with the arts. So, firsthand that how, if you're an educator, you're doing a lot of family stuff or community stuff, and that all came to a halt.
Hmm.
And I was grappling with dealing with the situation the same way I usually do, where I tend to panic and I burrow in. I kind of isolate myself. But this
Hmm.
time, isolation was coming from a different direction. It was outside of me. And I couldn't handle that. I felt like I was drowning a little bit because I am an introvert to a certain degree. I like my privacy, my quiet time, but I also like reaching out to people. But I found that with the time that I have, where I wasn't running around from one job to another, which is what I was doing, I worked for different organizations and teach here, teach there. I had all this time to really focus on myself and my work
Mm.
and my process and my just spiritual and physical well-being. So that's what I've been doing. I've been just focusing on that. Also, in combination with the Black Lives Matter, as an educator as well, and you probably understand this too, we've been living Black Lives Matter
Mm.
since,
Yes, yes,
since our
exactly.
lives began because it was important for us to live.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it seems
Exactly,
so basic.
exactly.
You would think it's so basic, but there are folks who are having a hard time understanding what that means, despite the evidence we have
Yeah, yeah.
that shows why we have to be this way. So I've just been reinforcing that with Black joy and looking for it and expressing it and looking for others to express and sharing it. Because just like my ancestors, you will not keep us down. We will
Mm-hmm.
have what we want because what we want is our human basic rights, and that's to live.
Yes,
And you're not taking
yes.
that from me, boo. You gonna have to come. You're not taking it. So yeah, that's it.
Exactly.
Refocusing it and trying to spread it out as much as possible. Yeah.
So you are a real teaching. I mean,
Oh,
I started off my career, right out of after college as a teaching artist. So I know that life of running from school site to school site, and having to develop different relationships with different kids, and having different school environments. You have to adapt to those. How long have you been doing that?
oh
Kind
man.
of running around.
So I've done all that horrible running around. No, it's good. It kept me on my toes. But I did it about 20 years. I started in,
Wow.
yeah, been a while. It's been a journey. Because when I was a teen, I worked with summer youth programs, and summer youth programs gave us jobs. And a lot of my jobs, I would always choose counselor jobs. So I was a
Oh,
counselor
okay,
with
okay.
PAL and a counselor with other kinds of, camps for kids because my mother, her background is she has a PhD in child development, and my father has an
Mm.
art and master's in art and education. So teaching was almost gonna, it's just inevitable with me because that was just the way I was taught, like breaking things that are complicated down to make them simple so we can understand them, you know? So it was just innate to kind of go into it. I was terrible at the beginning.
Who wasn't?
Unorganized and quite mean. But I've learned sit down. They're like, oh, okay, we don't have to do that anymore. But as time gone, it's really been a savior to my learning. I would say I went from volunteering at my children's school to getting a part-time with I think Hunter's College was one of my first non-volunteer things I was doing, but then that ended up taking me to Harlem Harlem School of the Arts.
Oh, wow.
Harlem School of the Arts, and then the Harlem School of the Arts put me in other schools in the Harlem area, as well as downtown Manhattan, where I was working at a school that was right across from Alvin Ailey. So I was traveling from the Bronx to Harlem to Midtown to different places. And that, which was, okay, so the amazing story then, it leads me to a program called Cool Culture, who gives low-income families access to museums. And there was an open call, right? Cool Culture was a savior because museums are quite expensive, and rightfully so. They have a lot to take care of, so they need those funds. But it was hard to get into them. But so that gave us access, and then there was an open call for a family photo shoot at the Studio Museum. And I was so frustrated with myself because I was like, you know what? I never really paid attention to the Studio Museum as a place for my family to go. I think I went on my own or with my mother, but not with my family. And that's where I met Shanta Lawson, who was the head of their education department, who, because I had that teaching background, I mentioned it. And she said, well, you know, we have a program called Little Studios. You want to try to teach that? And, you know, we went through the process of stuff and lesson planning, and I did, and I ended up sticking.
That is amazing.
Yeah, that's why I learned so much. So it was, teaching has been, oh man, a guiding light to me.
Yeah, and you know, when I look at your work, and we're definitely going to get into your work, but you can, I feel as the viewer, I can feel how all of your work is instructional, how you're really meticulous about doing research before you approach your work. And then also, you know, just again to get back to the idea of you know, going from place to place, so much of your work seems to be inspired by that movement, that, you know, even though you say you're kind of a homebody, you're an introvert type of person, you know, I think that moving around and capturing the city, the street, the people, is something that you can feel in the work, you know, throughout. And we'll get into the series, and in some ways extremely directly with what you happen to see outside, and then in other ways a little bit less direct, but still there's that connection to the city, the people, the places that you pass by every single day. Do you think that your work would be different if you were not a teaching artist? I know that's a wild. How do you conceive of that question? Or do you think that your background as a teacher is extremely central to what you do and how you go about your work?
Yeah, I think I would agree with the latter. I would be a little lost if I didn't have my educational background. I also enjoy the fact that I worked primarily with children and families. Like, it reminds me of the joy that has to exist in the work, regardless of how heavy the topic may be. And it's not always about aesthetic, but it's about maintaining my level of joy, because I think as an artist or as someone who's passionate about whatever you're passionate about, you don't want what you're passionate about to remind you of everything you're trying to heal from. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
sometimes
yeah.
it's necessary. Sometimes we have to have it. And I have pieces like that. I think we'll share one like that. But it didn't last long for me in my process,
Mm.
because I do always consider my audience being young children and families. So I think it's just
Wow.
ingrained in what I do. I really appreciate my educator background. It makes me think about other people too, you know,
Mm,
like
mhm.
what do they need? If I'm an artist, I'm also a person of service. What am I bringing to you? You know, so yeah, it's important to me.
Awesome, awesome. I think on that note, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna start sharing images. Let's see
Oh,
how am
exciting.
I gonna do this? Yeah. Like how am I
Technology
gonna
scares me. This is exciting.
here we go. Oh shoot, what did I do? Okay. You
You
know,
got it.
I always have an issue.
You're amazing.
I'm always like, which part do I do first?
There's so many
Let's
parts. I'm
see.
amazed that you can do this.
We got this. We got
Oh,
this.
you did
So
it.
sorry that folks have to see have to see all that. Um, so yes, again, here we go. I'm just super excited to get into these images. Um, so yeah, you wanted to start off with this piece, and this is a piece I hadn't seen before.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
this one is new to me, and you're seeing this full screen, right? Just to check.
Yeah, I believe
Okay,
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, so this piece in particular is called Birth of a Nation. Now, Birth of a Nation was also a film back
Mm-hmm.
beginning what year, my bad. I wrote it down somewhere, but it was created by the early KKK as propaganda to why there's danger of the black man and the black people and blah, blah, blah. And so
Mm-hmm.
this was, and I was introduced to that in high school, surprise, surprise, by a very progressive teacher who made us watch it. And this is some years later. So this is 2004. And so I shared this one because you had mentioned history. And around 2000 is when I first moved and got married and moved to Harlem. And during that time, my husband at that time, he had opened my eyes to a lot of history that I wasn't very clear on. And being in a historically Black community in Harlem is
Mm.
very hard not to learn about all these amazing Black people who've pushed so hard to put us where we are now. So I was just like, oh my gosh, all this stuff I'm learning the history, I'm learning, and this what was pushed out. And it was important to me because at that time, 2004, I had already had my daughter. And so I was a
Okay,
new
okay.
mother. I was, I forget if I was working, but I know I was busy. I felt like I was so busy. And this was an investment because at that time, I wasn't really calling myself artist, even though I knew I was an
Uh,
artist. And I fought to make this. But I soon after like leave this kind of work because well, I reduced the information because I'm trying to find so this one is similar to that in a way. I don't know if you could see it, but
I
again,
can. Oh, the faces made of other faces.
yeah. So this was a technique I learned from my father, and so I at first I utilized it a lot. Oh, I forget. I have the portrait of my daddy. So this is a portrait of
Oh
my
wow.
dad. Yeah. And again, so that was me kind of practicing the gift that my daddy gave me. Like he taught me how to collage. So I was utilizing that skill. But it slowly changes for me as I develop more of my artist voice. So we could it's I forget what do we have next?
We do have we're gonna go into
Collage
an
piece?
American Family album.
Oh,
No, we're just gonna go straight into those. But I think, kind of for this one, I do want to kind of deconstruct some of
oh,
this.
please. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I would love to, to kind of look at this, the buildings, I don't know, hopefully our viewers can see this, but the buildings are made out of currency, out of I
Yeah.
don't want to say dollar bills because I see multiple forms of currency. Um, and there's where the trees on the streets would be, there's cotton growing out. And this pilot is can you tell me about the pilot, and then the connection with is this about the film The Birth of a Nation?
Oh yeah. So the pilot, it ended up being a young boy because it's kind of like this idea of flying blind.
Mm,
Like a people not paying attention to their history and then creating this fantasy of and so he's like the puppeteer of this thing, right? And the idea too was, if you notice, his face is part beast or part monkey or part
yes,
some kind of
yes.
animal and part man, because in Birth of a Nation, the original film, they were trying to
Mm-hmm,
say that Black people were the beast. And
mm-hmm,
if you look at it, say, who's the beast to pull people out of their homes and lynch them? That seems like
mm-hmm,
a
mm-hmm.
beastly thing to do. And that's what they were doing. So it's kind of a mirror back of how I'm seeing you and you're seeing me. But and like even in the bottom, the sidewalk is made of Black children. And in all
Okay.
the windows, there are people in the windows, but there's one window in particular where there's a Black person, because they always let one in. And
Yep.
gotta have your one so we could be like, we have a Black person here. And then the signs say consume and buy, because that's the nature
Mm-hmm,
of the system. We know we're in a capitalist system and their concerns are usually and only money. So
mm-hmm,
because of
mm-hmm.
that, other things are kind of like everyone's so busy just keeping alive, we're not paying attention to what are we living? Because it's are we alive really if we're just running
Mm-hmm.
these games? So yeah, that's what how it connected to the little boy. And then he has also the heart of Africa. Um,
Yes, yes.
yes, because he always like say, oh, the primitive country, right? With all those fabulous resources you love to steal.
Yes, the richness of the world, right? Yes.
You know, and ignoring the fact that that heart, that blood that runs through them is the same that runs through us, because
Hmm.
we all started there. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know, it to me, I look at it now and it seems very, I don't know, I struggle with it because I put it away. I used to have it up, but I put it away. It's too hard for me. But yeah, I think, you know, I look now at it and I see, as an art educator, I really wanted anyone to approach it and have something they could take away from it, but they definitely were on the same page in some way. You know, I
Got
didn't
it, got
want them
it.
to be like, oh no, he's a nice guy and he's just hanging out on the building. No, you're gonna
Yeah, exactly.
ominous in a way, you know.
Hmm, hmm.
He's not there because he's hanging out. He's doing something, he's messing with something, and he's playing with life. Because that's how
Yeah,
he's,
yeah.
right? It's like it's there, it's telling you he's playing. Um, yeah,
I mean, I love it. I love that we're kind of like starting off at where you began, and I mean, because the rest of the work that we'll see from you is very different. It's a very, as
yeah,
you said, it's a very different approach. And so, I love, where an artist starts and, where they end up going with their work. And so, with that being said, we will move on to an American Family album, which, as folks can see, is a drastic departure, I would say. Almost it's again very minimal approach to the work, and what's going on for you at this time in your life, to where now you start to take a much more minimal approach and you start to have these objects. You know, we can see on the screen self-portrait. So this is a self-portrait, but it's missing your likeness, and you're using this chair, this seat, as a very comfortable chair, but as a stand-in for the human body. And so, you know, can you walk us through kind of your journey from what we previously saw to this image?
Yeah, so well, I think going to school for my MFA and having to really think about process and stuff, I did some other collage stuff, but then moved into the fabric because I had a lot of it, and I always conservation. I always try to utilize what's around. I don't like to buy things new too often because it's, you know, more waste, and I'm very conscious of that. So all of this whole series was made pretty much by found objects. Like the stretch from the stretchers to the fabrics, these were all things that I owned or I had family members own, and or I was given, and things I've lived with. So I was working on editing how much information I want to give people at with a certain artwork, right? So in this series in particular, and oh, this is another thing that drives me, it's so wild. Like so many things happen at once. Like you deal with like news, you deal with your life, you're dealing with like family members, like all these things just, and then it's like they're trying to process it all. So during the time that I started thinking about portraits, because I've made portraits of my family members before, but this time I wanted it to be different because I don't like looking at faces. I wanted something non-traditional, you know, and but then at the same time, they were pulling down statues in parks and talking about how do we have these symbols of slavery and things. And then I was watching the arguments of people who wanted the statues, which sometimes they didn't even know who were these in these statues.
Exactly,
but
right?
They knew they didn't want them gone. So it's like hearing these arguments and then reflecting on the history and the story of some of these people. And, you know, I was uncomfortable with thinking of my family as chattel, but it forced me to play with the idea, like if like we have it documented, right, that in our court system that human beings were seen as movable furniture, then this chair can represent me. Other than its anthropomorphic qualities, you know, it has the back, it has the arms, it has the legs, but it also it made me realize that, well, if you're upset about this slave master's statue going down, then would you ever be upset if somebody took me and sold me? Like, you know what I mean? So it was just all these things going on where I was like, you know what? Let me play with it. And I incorporated my family in the conversation, but I did it in a light way because we're not very sophisticated when it comes to our art discussions. So it was more like hey, I have a file of chairs. Pick one that you feel symbolizes you or reminds you of you. Yeah,
I'm gonna shift to
that opened it up. That just opened it up to very interesting conversations. And so in these pictures, the one on the left, Mom 1, was my interpretation of my mother and what chair she would be. I was wrong. She did.
Tell me more about that. What do you mean you were wrong?
She does not like this chair.
Really?
Yeah, and it was so sweet because my mom, she'll never say anything really mean about any of that. So she goes, I always know what she says. Oh, you did such a good job. Oh. That means when you highlight the work and not the work, it's like, no, she didn't like it. And I did that because she was taking so long to respond that I took it upon myself. Okay. But what was interesting, what I learned about our relationship is that mothers see themselves different than their children see them. And that's like, it makes sense, but like me being a child of someone, and at that time I wasn't making those connections, and I'm like, oh yeah, she doesn't see herself, like, even though that's how I see her very comforting and like lush. Yeah, I chose green because I feel like she grows things, she has a garden. So it's like, oh, I think of these things. It's just like, no, that's not what I think. And with my grandma, right, it's like, no, it's nice. It's nice.
Okay, so yeah, can you kind of like what? How do they choose? How did they choose the chair? You know, is it a chair that they actually owned, or you know, are these aspirational chairs, or you know, can
Yeah.
you kind of go through that?
So I have a Pinterest file called Take Several Seats, and I have over 400 or some odd chairs that I collect because I just aesthetically, I love chairs. I think they're so fascinating. Humans made them just for us to sit, and they're actually not very good for you and your spine. The Egyptians, 4,000 some odd years ago, were the first to actually use it as a sign of power. So that I thought was interesting too. And the fact that how in our homes, the furniture we choose, all these things kind of tell about us, you know, and they hold us. They're close to us. They're, you know, I all those reasons made me be like, oh, I love chairs. Let me collect them. And then in that lot, I said, choose what makes sense to you. What do you connect with? I even gave them the options to choose their own chairs. If there was a chair they had that they wanted, you know, and that, thank you for saying that, because it reminds me, my grandmother had a chair, and someone had found the picture of it.
Oh wow. So is that what this one came from?
Her chair
Uh-oh.
was ugly.
Oh, her chair was ugly.
Yes, it was not very appealing. It was a very like thick armchair with like the prairie designs all over it, brown with
Oh
all,
wow.
yeah, like you see a cabin and then there's a wagon going to the cabin and a
Oh
farm.
my goodness. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was one of those. And I chose this chair because it made me think of her as I see her in my head. And I always see her as a very quiet, graceful, elegant woman. And I saw this chair called the Nautilus. And it implied the water because it uses this spiral shell pattern on its arm. And because my grandmother, before she transitioned, she lived near the water in Far Rockaway. And I said, this is my grandmother's chair. And it actually, it's bathed in her quilt. That was a quilt that she didn't make, but she had, and she wore and used it on her bed. So.
Oh, that's sweet. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I love it. I love it. And so like, can you talk about like your grandmother's because I immediately think of my grandma.
Yeah.
I don't know where your grandma's from, but my grandma is from the South, and
Yes.
she had her special chair, and it was Laura Lee's chair. It was nobody else's. You don't sit on that chair. It is her space to where she
That's
can hold
right.
court in her living room when people would come to visit.
Yes.
You know, so
How did it look?
oh, it was, I mean, she would change it. It was always like some big wingback chair,
Yeah.
and my grandmother loved browns and golds, and so, you know, it was always I like you was it was slightly hideous at all times, but it was special. It was hers, no one else's. I think I've lost you for a second.
Do you have me? Oh no.
I have you now. Yes, yes, yes.
Okay,
There
I'm
was just a
sorry.
pause.
Oh, I'm
Oh,
so
no problem.
okay.
It happens. It happens. It's part of Zoom. Everybody's used to it.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, they tend to be hideous. But it was the same for my grandfather. You don't sit in their chairs
hmm hmm
ever. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was.
it's a sign of respect. Yeah, and I think like you said, also the fact of you know, this older generation and being able to own this chair, you know, finally, which you may not have had growing up, and you know,
Mhm.
it's yours, and then also having that power position within your own house, within your own castle, I think, you
Yes.
know, is an important part of looking at chairs. I love this series. I'm obsessed with it. And so does Soraya. She says she saw at Scurry and Coates introduced her to this work when he had a space in Harlem.
Oh,
Richard
and talk
Scurry.
about Harlem. It's now at the Living Arts Saloon with Connie Lee. Connie Lee is now exhibiting a
Uh,
portion of these, yeah, at the Living Arts Saloon in Harlem. So that's awesome. It was exhibited in 2017 or 18, I think, out here. Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
And someone is asking, can you repeat the name of the chair your grandma had?
Oh, it was the Nautilus. It was a
The
Nautilus chair.
Nautilus.
And I apologize. I think on my website I also give the maker of the chair. If not,
Oh, okay, okay.
I had that on file because I kept that just in case, just like, because I like to remember those things, but my brain can't hold it.
Yeah, yeah. You're the collector of lots and lots of information. And I want to get to, you know, the shift to the new chair for your mother, and then also the chair for your father.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So this was the second chair, and this was when she finally sent me a picture, and in it, oh my gosh, see how off I was? My mom is a circle and I had her in a rectangle. That was one of the boo-boos I made
Oh.
because she's circular. She's like, I like circles. So I said, I put it in a circle, and I also added my daddy to it because they're very important to each other. And the way I describe it, which the Vogue magazine forgot to put in, they kept the hot mess part, but they didn't say this part. My my father has over 100 teapots, and he has
Wow.
over 100 teapots because my mother loves tea.
Oh, that's
So
so sweet.
that's that's how close they are. And so um, I felt he had to be a part of it. And in the face is actually some of his own drawings, his line work
Hmm.
that he does. And then I beaded some of it because he's always had a beard. And I always loved him with a beard. It's weird when he cuts it. So that was important to be a part of hers.
Oh, that's so sweet.
And then
That's
she
so
liked
sweet.
that. She actually, and the way she told me she liked it, she took a picture with it. That's
Oh, there you go.
she,
There you go.
she took a picture with it and then shared it. So I was like, there you go. I did right that time.
So I want to, you know, I want to get into, you know, while we have this image up of your parents, kind of your, you know, what was your path to becoming an artist? You know, your father was an artist. It sounds like you grew up collaging with him, and that kind of influences a portion of the way that you have worked, at least. And you know, did your parents encourage you to be an artist? You know, did you have that rare set of parents who was like, yes, be an artist, dear? Or did they introduce you to art, you know, all along, and just was this always a part of your life?
Yeah, well, it always was a part of my life. But I realized it was supported very much so. My father was very good at giving me access to supplies. I had access to books, besides material. But it was a tricky navigation because um, my father and my mother were married for, I think, 2 or 3 years before they had me. I think they didn't know they can have children. And then all of a sudden I
Mm,
popped up. And I don't think they realized how difficult that was going to be in trying to have a career, especially in the arts. A Puerto Rican
yeah, yeah.
man, right? Having a career in arts that's successful, that he can pay bills. Like it was a tricky navigation. My father had moments of depression and sadness. When my mother would be able to get work because she's primarily in education, so she would teach or be
Mm,
in the social services, but it was tricky for him at times. And I was actually afraid to be an artist or say that I wanted to be an artist. Went through a list of other types of jobs that I thought I was going to do. Like he was big on animation. He was like, become an animator. You always have a job to be an animator. Or advertising. I was pushed towards advertising. But yeah, arts were something I had access to, and it was always like they always instilled how important it was, but it was also a difficult conversation because he never felt like he belonged, and when he did, it was always like he had to fight. He had to fight. He had to fight. He had to create his own shows. He created his own galleries and inside the schools he was in. Like whenever he was able, oh, we have the space, let's put up some art. Let's get, the flute player and the this player, and they'll have their own bands, their friends, they're in a band, make music, and they have arts on the wall. And they had to do everything kind of guerrilla style. And I think it just wore him out. And yeah, and so it was just like this mix of it's important, but it's difficult. And so yeah, it was hard, but I was always given material, and they used to even take me as well as other kids in the neighborhood to museums, to galleries. They would teach art classes. They would teach art classes, and then they would take them downtown to Chelsea and stuff and have young people selling stuff outside on tables. There's a story my mom tells me that I was actually placed underneath while I was sleeping in my bassinet. They put me under the table while they were like selling art stuff and vases and things they would make, because my dad used to do pottery. So yeah, they were ahead of their time. Now you think about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, of engaging young people and taking them places. Yeah.
That is that is so incredible. I love that. I'm gonna jump into another series, the related, but the next series, Displacement.
Yeah.
And I love that you sent me this image of your studio space.
Yes, in the Abrons Art Center, downtown Lower East Side. Now, the Lower East Side was important to me because that was where my dad grew up. And so I was
Oh wow.
at that time, I was able to go visit my grandfather, who was still alive at the time, and like 96. So it gave me access to work I can do as well as family. And it means so much to me because I lost him last year. So it was precious time. And I love this bag, that bag with the cow. That was something my grandmother gave me. So I love it. She's like, yeah, Mia, take this. So it was
it's really cute. And so then now we're gonna kind of zoom in onto what was on the wall at the time.
yeah.
And I just made the connection that that's the same wall. I didn't make that connection before. But yeah, just to kind of get a sense of this series. So again, we're at this point you're still dealing with chairs, but the style is very different. The fabric, I don't see the fabric there, and it also feels like you were really experimenting with how you represent it. Some of them are this very graphic kind of floating chair image, and then others are very have lots of different dimensions and other things going on with them. And so what encouraged you to create this series, and where did these photographs, I'm assuming, are not things that you just collected from Pinterest or from magazines. They look like they're things that you encountered in your real life.
See, that's that educator background. You're right, Dimitri. Excellent visual learning and looking. Good job. He's
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Snappy. Good job. I love that stuff. I love encouragement.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like chairs that you see. This just reminds me of the Bay Area, especially in Oakland, where chairs will just be on the corner, on the street. People don't want them anymore, and so they just stick them outside on the curb for someone else to take.
Yeah.
and now they're turning into installations because of the encampments. So
Oh, wow. No, it's
yeah,
true.
is this were these, what was the motivation for this?
Yeah, so like since I think 2015 or 14, I started taking pictures of chairs that were thrown away. And after I finished the American Family album, I started looking at my images again and started to really think about what it meant when you see an object that belongs indoors, outdoors, as well as
Mm,
what if this was a person? So
okay, okay.
yeah, so it's those two things because I think it triggers you. Well, it triggers me. Let me focus here. It triggers me when I do see arrangements that would exist indoors, because
Hmm.
I feel like that implies a living space that's existing without a home. And I think in New York City is dealing with a lot of issues with homelessness, um, with mental illness, with displacement. And that seems to be happening everywhere now with all these types of things where you see this object that has a purpose, but is not able to live that purpose. Um, and so it was all these things I started thinking about when I saw these abandoned objects, which sometimes are not even abandoned, which was the amazing
Hmm.
part too, right? I had a wonderful studio visit with artist Kenny Rivero, who brought to my attention this idea of ownership in a community, right? Like you wanting to have space where you all can gather and be together and talk together, where it seems like in brown communities they'll have spaces like this where because they don't have a porch they're going to create one, and they're going to
Mm.
have their piles of chairs and then they put them out and they sit and they so that idea of having space to connect, owning space even though you don't own it, that you own this chair and this chair is
Sure.
representative of my space, my place, yeah, so that's what I think this place was thinking about, and it isolates it almost like a portrait, where it's giving you some information about where this may exist, but it can exist anywhere. Like you said, it could be where you are. It can be in Canada, for heaven's sake, because like anywhere these things exist, it can be there. Because we've seen people take chairs out, and you also think about eviction, right?
Yeah,
At
yeah.
times, yeah, like it's horrible. One of my favorite photographers, Austin Hansen. Austin Hansen has amazing photographs of Harlem. Um, I forget what circa, but one in particular was a photograph of a woman who was just evicted. She's holding a baby,
Mm.
and they're taking her furniture out of the apartment. And how convenient! I actually have an artwork that I was inspired by that piece that was in a sukkah.
Wow.
But I have extracted her, of course, but that was inspired by her, by his photograph and that woman in the photo, because that's real, right? And we're dealing with that now, where people
Hmm.
are
Hmm.
wrongly being evicted from their homes. So, yeah, it's that idea that it belongs somewhere. Why is it here? Asking that question.
I love it. I love it. And how many photographs have you said since 2014 or 15? How many of these photographs have you amassed?
I don't even know.
Yeah, a ton, right?
Oh man, too many. I'm always editing myself. I told you I've had to learn to edit myself because
Mm,
it's my mom had a friend that was a belly dancer, and I think I've always compared it to belly dancing. Like that, she said the art of belly dancing is doing a lot of things at once. So it's like sometimes I was like I had to calm myself down because I'm very image heavy. Like I'm always like looking at images. I want to learn about these images. Where does this come from? Da, da, da. So yeah, that's why I think too. I took the information out, and I kind of like
got it, got it, got
I kind
it.
of like focus.
Yeah, and I do love what you say about the fact that you can by removing the background, you can kind of place this in your head anywhere. Like with this one with the hair, I could put I if I didn't see the trash can in the photograph that obviously references an American trash can, I could put this. In West Africa easily, so, and it does make me wonder, like, what's happening here? Has this been abandoned? Are they moving it? Or, you know, or is this, just being set up? What's happening with it? We
Yeah.
have no idea. We have no idea, and it's okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I want to remind our attendees to please, we're gonna get to your questions, and I have to speed myself up because again, lose track
Oh,
of
me too.
time and I get
Oh,
so invested in the conversations.
oh yes.
So yes, in about 10 minutes, we will switch to the Q&A section. And so please enter your questions into the Q&A panel, and we will get to them, I promise you. But I
Yes.
want to get into the series that has always blown my mind, that I'm super excited about, the scaffolding,
Yes.
the
I'm gonna
scaffold
do.
series. Yeah,
I'm,
so I did want to start off with this one, just because I think the sense of being able to see, again, this is something for me that I just love about your work, is this sense of what's around you, the people, the places, um, that you encounter along your kind of everyday. And so I will kind of show a little bit of your process going on in here.
yay.
um, yeah, the painting onto and it's handmade paper is what I understand, right? You
Yes.
actually
And
make your paper?
I didn't know. I taught myself how, but this series is made from a paper that I bought that was handmade.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. And then we have what the series is made out of, the scaffolding, which just is amazing. And I think for me, uh-oh, what did I just do?
What happened?
This is only on my end.
Oh,
I need a technical support person, but yeah. So the scaffolding. What brought you to this? And of course, as an educator, I'm immediately jumping into,
no.
the educational theory of scaffolding. And so for you, that was where you were coming from with this. Okay, awesome. I
Yes,
love it.
yes. You know. Yeah, that was
So can you talk more about that? Because I know that is something very specific to education.
yeah, no, it very much is. So scaffolding is an educational term. Ooh, I talk about technical stuff. My stuff just moved too. Um, it's it's very basic. To keep it most basic, it's just those ideas what teachers or administration does to support that individual student. So if they need whatever they need, they help them get it. And
Mhm, mhm.
my son has an IEP, or he did, and in that they would tell him, oh, if he needed a speech therapist or you need this and that and another. And I realized, and he also worked in smaller groups. And then I was thinking to myself, like, why don't all students have this? Like, it's
Mm,
nice that he's able to have it because it's all this extra attention that he's getting. But, I felt like we all should kind of have those types of things that we need to support us. But I realized during the time of my own spiritual awakening and really spending time with myself during quarantine and really asking myself those hard questions, I realized I did not always know what I needed because I was not
mm,
taught to do that. And in my discussions with my elders, like my grandmother or stuff, they don't know what makes them happy. They didn't know what
mhm,
they wanted to do in their lives. I take care of kids. I took care of your grandpa. It's like everything was outside of themselves. And I said, well, that means we need to start focusing what's inside. What is it that we need really? And so, and culturally, and America has an issue with need. It's almost like you're supposed to always figure it out on your own. you know, like,
Sure.
don't ask any questions, figure it out, right? And it's like, but wait, why can't we be gentle with this? Why can't I ask for support and receive that support without punishment? You know, it was something that, yeah, so during that time, it's just thinking about protection. What do we need? How do I fix what's inside? And it just made sense. I'm surrounded by scaffolding.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
You know, I also really love the concept of scaffolding because it's you know, when you put a scaffold up on a building, the building already exists. Like it may need some additional supports, you know. It may need, you know, even to be just painted, you know, something as minor as that, that doesn't inherently change the building in any kind of way, but you know that building already has a structure, it's already standing, and the scaffold is a temporary structure that is put onto this building to enable whatever changes, whatever additions, whatever supports are needed, and then it's slowly peeled away. And you know, and I love that you are literally applying that to people because you know they're not empty vessels, they're not entirely needing of to be filled or added onto by someone else. And you even said like, what do you need internally? So maybe what they need is already internal, and they don't need anything from the outside. Just that pause to say like, hold on, like what do you need? So I just think it's like beautifully poetic the way that you're applying these to folks.
Well, you know, it's so interesting because behind me, I have a piece that's from an earlier work called American Cheese. And in American Cheese was me kind of like playing with my everyday, thinking about how can I make my everyday accessible to anyone, right? So in it, it's interesting to me because we were empty in it, where I really didn't like to fill in the figure, and I would usually leave that for other people to do. Because the idea was too that it's almost like a coloring book, you add something to it. But then with the scaffold project, with my analog process of
Yes.
my
Yes.
technical kind of analog process, it was it kind of took that individual and turned them into a sculpture, right? It's like almost sculpture, and like you said,
Oh, it's
that
true.
sculpture needs, you know, maintenance. And it's so funny, you are right that it's to keep you protected, but you notice when people are going through healing, sometimes we have to be protected from them as well.
Yeah.
And so that's like, that could be a way of being like, well, this person's underwork, approach carefully, you know, like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think that
yeah.
you're right, because sometimes that's helpful for us to have people acknowledge that sometimes you can't run up on me and say, hey, what up? You know, sometimes, sometimes you have to see, you slowly approach me and say, hey, how are you? Are you well? You know, like check in. It's okay to check in with people. But yeah, it's all about wellness and that individual being well, because when you have someone who's well, they spread so much joy to so many
hmm
others,
hmm
right? Like I have so many pictures. I have the Sarai's beautiful picture in her beautiful Doro dress. Oh my gosh, that was a pleasure to paint.
Yes, I
That was
will. I also have that one.
yes. Look at all those dots. Oh my gosh, I love that kind of repetition is so much fun for me because I know I'm going to reap the rewards of it. Here's another participant here. Ooh, why is it I remember people's Instagrams and not their names?
Yeah, exactly right. You know
Like,
the handle. I can't
it's
remember the
Race
name,
and
right?
Revolution. It's at Race and Revolution, but that's her name. It's Catherine. Oh yes. So and Dinga. Oh my gosh, Dinga McCannon.
Oh,
Yes, and I did two for her because the first one, and she was so sweet. I just sent her one email and she was like, okay, I'll take a picture. And she took a picture and just sent it. And I said, oh my gosh, how sweet was that? Because at first, I tell you, it was quite hard to find people to understand. And it was hard to explain because I knew that I had this idea, and it came from like what really triggered me was, oh, I'm making the dots. What really
Exactly.
triggered
I
me,
know.
yeah, I love that, was the Old Stone House, their curator, Catherine Gressel, had Brooklyn Utopias. And this idea of utopia really kind of got me, because it's like, it makes it seem like it's a fantasy and we can't attain it.
Uh,
You know, like, oh, it's pretend, but like, I just took it that way because those are the connotations I was taking it. But it's not. We can do so many things. You know, if we just applied ourselves and took our time and was gentle with ourselves. But it really made me think about what would make utopia. And I really, if you think about it, it would fill the whole buildings and walls and everything, because we are all, oh, you can hear how, you hear how the traffic sounds usually?
exactly. Exactly. I love it. So, so,
Oh my God, it's so noisy. But it would be everywhere.
yeah, I'm so sorry to to distract, but I was like, I want to show all of these while you're talking about them.
You're good. You can interrupt me. I don't mind. I'm all
No,
over.
no, 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 no. Like, so the idea is so you're building towards utopia with this.
Yeah, in a way, you know, it's yes. I'm gonna own that. I'm not afraid to say that. But there's a lot of failure in it. You know what I mean? Like, people are already saying, like, oh my God, and not everyone's gonna get along. No, we're not all meant to get along, but we're not
Mhm,
all meant to
mhm.
kill each other. Okay, we're not all meant to attack one another. We're not all meant to be jealous of one another. We can regulate these emotions and just do okay. We don't have to be the super best, but we
Yeah,
don't have
yeah.
to be super worst. You know what I mean? The same stuff we tell kids, right? In education, we're always like encouraging them to use their voice, but be courteous of others. I don't know what happens from pre-K
Mhm.
to college that we just throw all this out the window and become angry people. You know what I mean? So
Ex- we start smell it's like the old folks, like we start smelling ourselves at a certain point.
oh, you got good ones. Monica Montgomery, Upstander. She did a TEDx talk for Charlottesville. That's an excellent video to watch. And both of them together, Stephanie and Monica, both have come up with Museum Hue, um,
Yes.
to create community and opportunities for creatives of color. And they do that. I've seen and witnessed the work they do. They're amazing women. But yes, I was so blessed to be able, one, to know them. And
Mhm.
that's more stories. I'm full of stories. That's why I'm going to be some hell of an old woman.
We love it. We
Oh
love it.
man, I'm going to be 80 years old, man. Forget it. They're never going to shut me up. But um, their stories are amazing. But the work they do, Museum Hue, Upstander, that stuff to look up. They're amazing people. Oh, and I have one too. I brought. She's new to my
Oh,
Scaffold
I love
project
it.
folks. There's a new one. You guys get to see it before anyone else. I was able to finish it in time. Alicia Grulon. Alicia Grulon. Another
Me,
part of
I'm gonna stop sharing so that we
oh,
can fully see you.
I'm sorry.
There we go.
I'm all over
Oh,
the
no, no,
place.
no, no.
So this is
No, no, I
Alicia.
love it. I love it.
You like, oh, good, good, good. Alicia Grulon, and she's the last, but she is an activist. And that's another part of this. I don't see myself as an activist. I'm just a Black Latinx and add more stuff because there's more things to that. But I'm just that person who has the experience. So I'm dealing with it. So I have to express it in the work because that's my life. But these women and men, I have men too in this group that dedicated their art practice to activism. And that's
Hmm, hmm.
hard. That's so hard because it's so taxing on the spirit. So that's another part of the project is to support those people, all those artists, those activists that do those things and to bring them up. That's why I'm bringing their names up. I want everyone to, if you check out the website, check out these people, check out their names. This is Nia Iman Smith. She's going back to school for a PhD in, there's a fancy word for it. I call it musicology. Excuse me because I'm ignorant. But she learns her stuff, she's learning is deep. And I can't repeat it because I'm not fancy. But
I
I
think
love
I think that I think that's the right
it. I don't
field of
know.
study, but I don't know music either.
I
So
don't know, but she's amazing. She's doing stuff. Man, oh my God. Wait, we got Autumn Knight and her lovely husband, Robert Pruitt. They live in Harlem, which is amazing. It's like
oh
down to earth,
wow.
awesome mass people. Oh, excuse me. They're awesome. Like it's just, and I'm telling you, like if you look at your life, anybody look at their life and think about who they know, list it out. Think about these people. You know, amazing people. Yeah, amazing people. I have people who are, oh my gosh, I have my neighbor. I have, he's a firefighter. And that's happened recently. We got fathers, people do administration in the arts, in the museums. Like there's so many people, man. I'm so proud and honored to be able to make these portraits of them and show them in this way of being supported. And I hope that grows because I have stuff coming up, but I'm gonna wait till you tell me I could tell stuff. So
Oh yeah. I mean, I think we're definitely in that space. I want to know all about them. But before we talk about what's coming up, I want to know a little bit more about the process. Like, how do you conceive of these? We heard a little bit about that, but it seems like in some instances you are directly soliciting people to send in images. In other situations, are you the photographer? You know, how do you conceive of this? And then also, what is also let me stop there, but actually I guess because we have like 5 minutes left, so I also want to know kind of like I want to know the step-by-step process that you go through to create the piece. We talked before we went on camera a little bit about your analog and a little bit about how you use the computer, but you know, I would love for you to go into that.
So yeah, I am analog, and what I do is I use a vellum. I first used tracing paper, which proved to have been very difficult. It was hard to see through it well, and it would tear and rip. There's examples of it, see it's ripped. But this vellum was very good, and I pretty much asked the participants to send me 2 to 3 photographs. I picked the best one for drawing, and I actually place it onto the screen of my computer. So you can imagine,
oh wow,
the computer screen is filled with fingerprints. People who are, they would go crazy. And I, with a pencil, draw over their photograph. And let me tell you, people have blurry photographs. Oh my God. It's not, like, I did not know it'd be so difficult for people to have pictures head to toe, but a lot of people don't have that. They usually just do, the crop. But that felt too memorial for me. I wanted to think about the whole body. So so I trace it and then I transfer it onto the handmade paper. And in this picture in particular, this one is my friend and artist, Gerald Lavelle. He sent me this awesome picture of him kind of like chilling near a car. See how he kind of stands?
Sure, yeah.
But you're noticing how heavy the scaffold is, right? That
exactly.
That was the earlier days where I was like March, April, May. I was very into these meticulous lines, but I felt like the figure was getting lost. So in time, it became more abstracted. So this is a second picture he sent me. And this, you could tell how I'm starting to freestyle a bit. But yeah, that was, so that was the process of producing them. I usually do them in batches. So if I get about 6 to 7 photographs, I do a day of tracing, and then I come in, do a day of transfer, and then I do a day of painting. And yeah, and now I'm up to 147.
Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. And what is the plan with these? I mean, I know we're emerging from lockdown, and California we're just starting to, we just got moved into orange tier, I think today or yesterday, whatever. So we're starting to, some of our institutions are opening. So yeah, I feel like at any time before I'd be like, when's your next show? And it's like, I don't know. But you know, when can folks see your work? Because it seems like those things are starting to come up now.
Oh, that's a good question, Dimitri. Thank you for asking me. Oh, So it's been really exciting because it's been embraced, and I'm so glad that people have been embracing this idea of protecting oneself and taking care of oneself. So right now it's currently at the Visual Arts Center of New Jersey, in the Strolling Gallery. And I also, no, that's where it is for now. Oh, I want to mention that it was a part of Love This Time, curated by Atiba Edwards. I really appreciated that exhibition because what they did was they printed it out and they placed it into the storefront. So people were
Oh,
able to see them.
wow.
Yeah. And oh my gosh, I wish I had access because I don't ride the trains. I'm so sorry. I'm just a little nervous about the subways. If anyone
Mhm.
sees our news in New York, you'll know why. So I didn't go there, but Focus Magazine and Myrtle Avenue Brooklyn Partnership, they support that. That was awesome. It helped bring it to the streets, right? Because until
Yeah.
now it's been indoors. And then in May, it's going to the Kente Royal Gallery, and that's Doji over there. Doji, please forgive me. I'm sorry. He knows I'm bad with names. He knows. Oh, and it's also been shared by Atim at the Calabar Gallery. She's also been a helpful representative of the Scaffold Project. But in particular, May is when we're going to have the culmination exhibition of all the portraits in one place. I want to have
Wow.
performances. I want to have engagement. I want to have artists talk. I want to do whatever and everything I can do. And I want to highlight each and every one of these artists and the fact that they are amazing. And if I could have all my dreams come true, each one of them can get $1,000 or something. I don't know. I just want everyone to leave with something and be able to enjoy life and be thankful. I don't know. But yes, that's coming.
Okay, so you are an activist. I'm gonna back up to what you said. You are an activist. You definitely are someone who creates social change. It does not have to always be on the front lines.
Oh, I just get excited about it. I really
That's
want.
awesome. So maybe you haven't even considered this, and so sorry for this question. Maybe sorry, not sorry. Um, have you have you know with now over nearly 150 of them and still counting? Have you considered this turning into a book? Has anyone had that conversation? Okay.
Oh, you're very right. And that is definitely something that I'm looking to develop. But something has slowed me down in it because I was rushing to have it ready for May. But something is telling me that it needs to have more time to develop because
Okay.
I really, the idea of the book was really to have every participant engaged in some way. And right now I'm having difficulty doing that because I can't really travel out to people as much and stuff. And so what that means is I need time I want to talk to people and see how they can bring something to the book so that we can all be authors of it.
Oh, love it.
But that, again, because I'm dealing with the number, so yeah, so I'm trying to be gentle with myself with the
Yeah, of
deadline.
course, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but thank you so much for asking because I have Retha Powers. Oh my gosh, Retha Powers is a published author, and she said she would help me with that. And I'm so excited. She's also a Scaffold Project participant, so that's why I mentioned.
Woohoo.
But yeah, but and shout out to David Rios over at the Children Museum of Manhattan. He's amazing. But yes, as you can tell, yeah, it's a passion project. I really appreciate everyone for trusting me with their image, which is why I hold them so dear and I want to give them something. Because if you look at our history, Black, Latinx, women, Asians are usually paid less than our white counterparts,
Mhm.
and which is why I say I want to give them money for what they did for me. Yeah, so it's just been a really passion project, and I've been going with the flow of what makes sense and feels right. But a book is definitely on the list.
I'm gonna be looking out for it. I'm gonna be looking out for it. I mean, it just makes sense. It's the
Yeah,
the scale that you work by. It just I don't know. So I'm looking forward to that. And this has been an awesome
Oh,
conversation.
man, you're amazing, Dimitri. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Elon, I'm excited. This has been that once you said yes, it's been the highlight, and I have been looking forward to this for so long, because I just knew it was going to be an amazing conversation with you.
Oh, I thank you for that. Thank you so much.
Yes,
You're amazing, Dimitri. Let's just make note. I just wrote down because I two in particular, Allison Sarr and Albert Chong. I watched these videos
oh,
you interview.
yes.
Thank you for those interviews, man. They were awesome.
I just get to talk to some of the most amazing people in the entire world. I mean, come on. So this is always enriching, and like today says, it's like we're going to church every single time. So yeah, I appreciate it so much, and we have so much talent out there that I just want to amplify and I'm fortunate that I get to have this role. This is my day job that I get to talk to amazing people. So yes, I want to tell everyone to that this conversation immediately following will be available immediately on Museum of the African Diaspora's Facebook page. And by the end of the week, you will also see it on our YouTube channel. And please share it out with other folks and look for us. We'll be back in 2 weeks with Elena Gross. She'll be facilitating the interview. So thank you so much and have a beautiful day, Elan. Can't wait to see you in real life. I got to get out to New York soon.
Yes, or me to Cali. I don't mind going.
All right. Bye, everyone. Have a great
Bye.
one. We'll see you next
Thank
time.
you. Thank you.